I want you to get together.
But so not just in the Old Testament, but throughout a lot of different mythos throughout the world, we hear of these fallen angels, which are, yes, described as like both beautiful but also serpentine. We have the interbreeding. And so I want to flesh that out a little bit, right? I'm just personally curious in your research, was this a consensual mating? Like, were these guys just way more badass than actual human men and the women were like powerless? Was this like a force or coercion type situation? And so what's really going on here, right? So the
Hmm.
mating of fallen angels with man, you know, what led to that? How's it happening? What are the results?
Sure. So maybe for this one, I'll do a reading from that chapter of my book where I laid this out. Maybe that might make it clear.
Oh,
It's
please.
it's only a few pages, and I think it might be good for my listeners to see the page as well. And this is what I've kind of got. This is first draft stuff, by the way. But the first part of my book, the first 10 chapters, are going through the whole history we're going through today. Okay, so I've titled this one
Perfect.
Chapter 5 Jealousy and Pride Incarnate the Nephilim. So this is how it all came together. So I'll go on. So
Perfect.
we have discussed so far the two factions who are out for revenge against God due to their own petty shortcomings and insecurities and reasonings. Cain, with his progeny, and the rebellious angels. From a mutual understanding, a bizarre union was formed with the sole purpose of destroying and warping creation beyond redemption. Cain and all his progeny were corrupt in all their ways on the earth, abusing the knowledge of the sacred sciences passed down to them from their forefather Adam, twisting this holy knowledge to control the peoples of Day 6 and build his oppressive cities over all the land to contain them. His sons went on to pervert the knowledge further, maintaining dominance by forming secret societies and creating hieroglyphic languages to pass the knowledge down through the family without the profane masses understanding it. Some worshipping serpent cults dedicated to keeping the people in line through total religious fascist control were established. These cults diverted the people's attention towards idolatrous pagan concepts such as astrological mysticism over the sun, stars and moon, and earth worship, while also attesting to multiple gods existing over the earthly and heavenly domains, rather than one creator god. These pantheons were made a reality by our second faction, the Archon rulers. The rebellious angels agreed with Lucifer that man was not worthy to be bowed down to when compared to their glory and power. These angels were once the rulers over all things in creation. They had dominion over all humans before the creation of Adam, and they had no intention of losing that to a pathetic man, just because God said it should be so. These angels knocked Adam off his pedestal through deceit and false promises, tearing him from the Garden of Eden into a lower and corrupted state. Then they simply sat back and watched with tentative eyes, observing Cain murder his brother Abel, before being sent out into the world in exile. They watched on as he
Hmm.
abused the knowledge given to him by his father to exert his control over the peoples of Day 6, no doubt seeing in Cain and his children the same unrepentant spirit of stubborn rebellion they saw in themselves. Both factions felt utterly betrayed and abandoned by God, and as the old saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. 6 generations passed as the angels watched the righteous seed of Seth and the spurious seed of Cain grow over the earth in tandem, one agrarian and peaceful in their approach to living on the earth and using the knowledge of the sacred sciences, the other domineering, industrial, and warlike with their sacred knowledge. By the 6th generation, the land was well divided among these two competing bloodlines, and the angels had no doubt established themselves as the gods they once were, with the help of the sons of Cain. Much speculation has been given as to how the infamous union between angelic beings and human women first came to be. We know from Genesis 6 that the angels thought human women were beautiful. It has been speculated that Lucifer, working with Cain, took the daughters of Cain, adorning them with beautiful clothes, makeup, and jewelry, before leading them up Mount Hermon and offering them to the Watchers for sex, tempting them to commit the ultimate sin against the order of creation. However, in the book of Enoch, it's said that the fallen angel came to the earth with the sole intention of corrupting mankind, after already noticing how beautiful the human women were. This would mean that no outside temptation from Lucifer was necessary. As we can read, quote, "And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose our wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone will have to pay the penalty of the great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves in mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. They swore, they all bound together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And there were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. Though it doesn't say that the daughters of Cain seduced the angels, it would be a safe assumption to make that these women were still willing participants in this act. What we can know for certain from Enoch is that the only thing holding the angels back was fear of the punishment they knew they would have to suffer for committing such an abomination. The angels not only mixed themselves sexually with humans, but also taught them things that only made them more and more destructive as a force on earth. Quote, Thou seest that Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Semyaza, to whom has given all authority to bear rule over his associates. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins, and the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with the blood and unrighteousness. End quote. All this started in the time of Jared, who was the 6th generation from Adam, with Noah being the 10th. This means we can know it only took 4 generations, though these generations were far longer by modern standards, to completely destroy creation from its initial incursion. What the angels did by mixing their immortal essence with mortal women and creating demigod giants was the modern equivalent of releasing a flesh-eating virus on the earth and letting it run rampant until nothing was left. It was truly an unforgivable act, and the Nephilim created from this union were truly destructive and a brutal force, as was described in the dramatic detail in Enoch. Quote, And they became pregnant, and they bore great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against the birds, and the beasts, and the reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood. End quote. These giants could not be sustained by mankind serving them. These beasts had an appetite that just could not be satisfied. In order to attempt to quell their hunger, they ate all the crops that mankind grew, before turning against mankind and eating them. Then they defiled the animals, eating them too, before finally eating one another. The Book of Giants is an apocryphal Jewish book which expands upon the Genesis narrative of the Hebrew Bible. In a similar manner to the Book of Enoch, it lays out the story of the Watchers and the creation of giants until the flood that destroys them. Dr. J. Winters gives a summary of each chapter in their translation for the complete Book of Enoch Standard English Version. Here's the summary of the 4 chapters. Chapter 1. The Watchers were grieved over the sins of mankind, and petitioned God to let them descend to the earth to teach the sons of men righteousness, and to rebuke them. God grants their petition. Azazel is sent down to prepare the way for the Watchers. Azazel prepares the way, and the Watchers descend, and they begin to teach them righteousness and justice. Enoch is chosen by the Watchers to serve as a mediator between the men and the Watchers. In chapter 2 it says the daughters of men lusted after the attractive Watchers and seduced them. Azazel, with Semyaza's help, instigates the fall of the 200 Watchers and their followers. The Watchers fall from their glorious nature and become bound to fleshly bodies as a consequence of their joining sexually to flesh. They begin to reveal to their heavenly wives the earthly secrets. Chapter 3 says the Watchers have their own families with humans and also with animals, and those that were defiled by them gave birth to giants. These giants began to grow to massive sizes and become full of greed and corruption. They kill many dragons, and the sons of Cain worship them for protecting them. The children of Cain are no longer able to sustain the giants with their offerings of vegetables and grain, so the giants turn on them and kill them and begin to eat them. The giants develop a taste for blood and begin eating any moving thing, including each other. The Watchers teach some of the secrets they were appointed over to keep from the sons of man. The giants imitate the sins of their fathers, the Watchers, and take for themselves wives and animal mates, and they begat Nephil and Elio. God, seeing all this wickedness, sent Enoch to declare to Shamyaza and the fallen Watchers that they will soon be punished for causing the earth to be so corrupted. The fascinating difference in this version of events is the additional motivation for the Watchers to come to Earth. According to the Book of Giants, they requested to come to Earth to prevent the righteousness of man. Sorry, the unrighteousness of man. I need to edit that. So yeah, apparently according to this, the angels came down because they saw that man was becoming unrighteous, and God, could we go down and teach them how to be righteous, please? Apparently that's a weird one. So it appears their intentions were pure to begin with. It also appears that Azazel and Shamyaza, alternatively Semyaza, two leaders of the Watchers, though it is argued that these are actually the same creature, not two separate entities, by Gary, I think. They came to Earth first to prepare a way for the angels before they arrived. What this means is up for debate, but the next chapter makes it clear that they are the two angels who help the daughters of Cain seduce the other angels. So one can assume that Azazel and Semyaza had already sided with Lucifer in this rebellion before requesting to come down to Earth as Watchers. They likely consorted with Cain's progeny in preparation to corrupt the other Watchers as a part of Lucifer's revenge for placing humanity above angels. This is very interesting, as a Coptic fragment of the Book of Giants seems to show that this must have been planned well in advance of the Watcher's arrival. Quote, before the Egregori rebelled and descended from heaven, a prison had been built for them in the depths of the earth beneath the mountains, before the sons of the giants were born, who knew not righteousness and piety among themselves. 36 towns had been prepared and erected, so that the sons of the giants should live in them. They should come to beget. Though not much information is given who built these cities for the yet uncreated Nephilim, we know Cain and his progeny had a propensity to build cities, this being the first thing Cain did after being exiled from God's presence. Perhaps this was a part of Azazel's preparing the way from the Book of Giants. It seems likely if we consider the Book of Giants to be legitimate, and it's certainly fun to speculate. Another interesting point to take from the third chapter of the Book of Giants is that the Nephilim also created their own offspring through the rape of women and animals, thus creating Nephil and Elio. This could be explained for the creation of the bizarre hybrid monsters found throughout ancient mythology, something we'll explore in the next few chapters. The creation of the Nephilim is an epic story spanning over an unknown aeon of time we can only get glimpses of through ancient texts, passed down through oral traditions and archaic languages. The story revolves around angels and humans teaming up in rebellion against the Creator for a bid at total domination of his creation. The Nephilim played a pivotal role in Lucifer's revenge story as foot soldiers for the fascist antediluvian world order. But how exactly did they play this evil role before their utter destruction? So that's the end of that chapter, and then I go on to talk about how they became the kings and rulers in chapter 6. But there you go, there's many theories of whether it was consensual or not. It seems like the one theory is that the angels came down with good intentions originally, but then they were corrupted by the leaders who maybe had bad intentions, so there was a bit of deception going on, perhaps. That's one theory. Another theory is that Lucifer brought beautiful women to the Watchers on Mount Hermon to tempt them, and they gave in to their temptations. So you have some stories that show sympathy for the devil, some stories that show that the devils were outright evil to begin with, like in the Book of Enoch. They came down 100% knowing what they were going to do, and even made a pact to go through with it because they knew they would be punished. So who can say whether it was consensual or not? But I think the daughters of Cain were fully on board. especially with having sex with angels. I don't think they were on board with having sex with the angels' children, the Nephilim. I think that was a case of rape. And the Nephilim then created their own offspring, which was the Nephil and the Elio. And I don't think there's anything consensual about that at all. So there you go.
Women, eh?
I want you to get together.